Kai Yang didn't think much of this though, because they were in Black Plum Village, located close to Sky Tower. Other disciples coming down to the village was quite common. A little while ago, Kai Yang arrived at the line for rice. The line was quite long, the length of 2 stalls. The business was very prosperous, but only has one waiter running around serving. The boss was calculating about money on an abacus at the counter, while the wife greeted the guests. As more people finished ordering, the line gradually became shorter and Kai Yang joined the line. Madam Kai Yang cried out. A 40-year-old looking lady looked up to see who it was. When she saw it was Kai Yang, she suddenly smiled and said, "Ah, young man, you came to buy rice again?" "Yes." He walked to the front of the counter and pointed a bag behind the counter and said, "Give me 1 bag please." While the lady was tying up the bag with a string, she said, "Young man, you buy just 1 bag a month, is this enough for you?" Kai Yang replied, "It's enough." "You're lying," the lady retorted while looking at Kai Yang. "Look at you, such thin arms and legs. If you're eating properly, then what's with the skinny arms and legs?" Yang Kai smiled sheepishly. "I also go to the mountains to hunt, so therefore even with just 1 bag I won't be hungry." While the boss concentrated on calculating the bill, he whispered to her, "Go fetch the old rice from the back and give it to this child." "We'll listen to the boss," Madam replied with a smile. "How is this right? You are also trying to make a living here," Yang Kai said out loudly. The lady immediately frowned her face. "What use is old rice? Leaving it there will only provide a place for insects to grow. Anyways, people won't eat it." But the owner said that this rice still has some nutrients, although less. "You wait here, I will go get some for you take home." As she was saying this, she had already started walking towards the back room. Kai Yang's heart swelled, for he didn't know what to say. Every time he came to buy rice, the boss and his wife would always find various excuses to give him more. They say that insects will grow in old rice and the like, but in fact, it was always good rice they gave him, not old rice. Their generosity gave Kai Yang hope in this sad world. "Thank you, Uncle He." Yang Kai's voice had a slight trembling to it. The boss smiled and looked up. "When living alone, don't you have household problems? In the future, whenever you're hungry, just come to our shop. We may not have much, but we still have enough rice for you to eat." "Okay." Yang Kai nodded his head. This world still had good people around. Shortly, 2 enthusiastic people came to the rice store and kicked some people who were ready to order their meals from the line and away from the store front. The second little brother fell, landed on his butt, and flipped over. It was a big problem because after he fell to the ground he couldn't get up again. "Why?" Bossy called towards the people who had kicked the little brother as he ran out from behind the counter and towards the 2 men. Kai Yang quickly helped second little brother up whilst intently glaring at the 2 evil-faced men. One of the men, looked pale and thin, was clutching his stomach, while the other one was built like a bear, supported the pale one. These 2 were the ones who kicked the second brother. "Who's the boss here?" the man people shouted out. I am. Bossy quickly replied. He was only an ordinary merchant, yet the 2 men who called him out had such fierce-looking faces. The swords at their waist and the fierce faces that showed they were not easily trifled with. Bossy wondered what had happened. Well. So you are the black-hearted boss. You even dared to sell poisonous rice to my brother. Look at him. Originally he was a strong man, but after eating your rice he became this sickly. Normally he is as strong as a bear, but he can hardly stand now. You black-hearted person, worrying only about money and going as far as to take lives." At this outburst from the man, Bossy worriedly stammered out, "How could this be? How could it?" The man then said, "How would I know? This morning my brother bought some rice from you, and made rice porridge, then he became like this after eating the rice he bought from you. I was lucky I didn't eat any, otherwise I also would have become like him." Boss's forehead began to sweat. He took his sleeves and kept wiping his forehead and said, "Respected customer, I fear there might be a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" "Misunderstanding your mother. If it wasn't your rice, then what caused him to become like this?" The Han man roared. TLN, Han people were a type of ethnic inside of China. Kai Yang sat down and pondered the situation while all eyes were on the commotion. Boss, he is such a nice person. Kai Yang couldn't believe that this person who gave him rice would put poison in it. Not to mention the fact, boss, he couldn't possibly have a black heart. In Kai Yang's mind, a black-hearted businessman wouldn't be so stupid as to poison his own rice. If these information spread, how would he do business in the future? Who would dare come and buy his rice? The two men's poor excuses were really unbearable, and they couldn't even consider that it was something else. Therefore, these two are definitely here to ruin others. But this move was a bit too evil, for they implied that the boss needed someone to die just to earn some money. Even though Kai Yang's body was weak, he was still a practitioner. And through these past years he had seen countless types of people, so he felt he could accurately judge Boss He. The man was also someone who he owed greatly, and when Kai Yang witnessed this, it caused his face to fall. He stood up and said, "These two." "What?" One of the men threw him a glare, his anger evident. Kai Yang didn't speak, but Boss He immediately sprang in front of him. He slowly shook his head for Kai Yang to stop. TL**tear** Boss He, you're too kind. Uncle He? Kai Yang was stunned. Even in bankruptcy, avoid misfortunes. Boss He whispered. Kai Yang just helplessly sighed. That fact that the boss said this signaled that he knew what the two Han men were on about. But in order to do business, one must have a good name. The earlier commotion had already attracted a lot of attention. If this continued, then the rice stand's reputation would go down the drain. Even if one knew what they said was false, one could only comply with them and hurriedly hope to end this fiasco before too much damage was done. In desperation, Boss He faced the man. "Regarding your brother's illness, I can say that it has nothing to do with me." After the two men heard this, one cried out in anger, "Even if it's not related, I have already come to this rice stand. If I don't make the truth clear, then my brother's suffering would be in vain. He should be sent to the doctor immediately. But of course, if you are willing to shoulder the medical bills, then we are willing to drop the subject." After this statement, it was clear that you really needed to go bankrupt to avoid misfortunes. If people really wanted to extort money, they would do it over a period of time. The demands that these two men were making were too short-sighted. If Boss He agreed to pay them off now, his rice stand's reputation would still suffer. For nothing is watertight, and news of him selling poisoned rice would spread. This told Kai Yang that the men were either not interested in extorting Boss He for more money or that they had some other goal. Who would have imagined that these two Han men had not intention of compromising, you black-hearted boss? Who do you think we two brothers are, to be exploited by you so freely? We two brothers were really unlucky to have bought poisoned rice from you. Where is your guilty conscience? That statement resonated quite deeply with Kai Yang. He curled his lip while sitting, thinking with a virtuous and living life a clear conscience. Boss He was also stupefied. What? Weren't these two men here to extort money? While stunned and unsure what to do, more and more people had started to gather. A handsome boy similar to Kai Yang's age had also appeared. From his looks, he was clearly far better off than Kai Yang. That young man casually walked up to the men and circled them with interest. Whilst doing so, he constantly clicked his tongue. Others may have not noticed, but with a glance Kai Yang recognized those three as the people he spotted earlier in the alley. The crowd just stared at the boy, who had just appeared. Weren't these three men together? Kai Yang sensed an evil plot in the air.